What's going on, everyone? This is Nick, and I'm going to be talking about Kendama as a sport mindset in Japan today. I've been living here for a little over a year now, a year and 1 month, and it's safe to say that I've noticed a lot of things surrounding, the mindset people have towards Kendama here compared to America, Europe, any other place I've ever been. Japanese people and Kendama in Japan, of course, over here is known by every single person. It's a children's toy. It's a children's game. But it's slowly but surely becoming and on the way to an actual sport. And it already is, for a lot of people out there, their go-to sport. It's their thing to do. They aren't doing any other things simultaneously. Some people are playing regular sports like soccer, basketball, baseball, along with Kendama. But a lot of kids out there, young ones right now, are all in on Kendama. And I want to talk about a couple different points today, just reinforcing how crazy it is to come over here and just see how seriously people take Kendama. And it's incredible. It's incredible to come from America where, yes, Kendama is being spread all across the world thanks to American brands, American companies, American players. People from Europe as well, they have the same mindset, get Kendama as big as possible. We all have that mindset, right? But it's not just about that here in Japan. It's something different. It's on a different level. So I want to talk about a couple different points today, kind of just reinforcing that opinion here. And it's honestly really incredible to see. It kind of reminds me of how I used to play soccer. I used to play soccer for 12 years. And it just some of the things that the kids and even the families will do just remind me of soccer practice. And I'll get back to that in a little bit. But the first thing I want to talk about today is an event called Pop Swag. I went to an event called Pop Swag this past weekend. It was in Tokyo, Shinjuku, and this was the third time this event had been held this year. The first time it was ever held was in June, second time in September, and now the championships, the winter championships, were just held on December 16th. So just at the end of the year here. And I want to kind of emphasize who these hosts are. Who's hosting these events, right? Who would host the same event 3 times in 1 year? Why would you do that? Well, these hosts, and me growing up playing Kendama for 12 years, right? I feel like I know a lot of players. I feel like I've been in, been in the Kendama world for a really long time compared to most people. And I've seen it. I've seen the regular players, and the regular people who host events. Things are changing. Times are changing, right? I mean, the people who hosted Pop Swag, they are all sponsored players, except for one. But they are literally all sponsored players, all very good Kendama players, right? You've got Hyo. He used to be sponsored. He used to be affiliated with a company called Kennel, but he just left that recently. We have Hyo. We have So from Sweets Pro. We have Rin Shibuya from Seoul. Yu Taro, also known as Udama, really, really popular on TikTok, YouTube Shorts. He's on Ozora. And you've got Nobu, the DJ, who's on Kendama USA. Right? These are all just pro players coming together to throw a massive event 4 times a year, seasonally. That's the goal, right? I think this next year they're going to be doing one in March. Their next one they're already planning, March, right? They want to do an event. They want to get it as big as possible. So they're going to throw in it every season until they reach that limit. And then they're going to be cutting down on the frequency. But these are in the words of Hyo. Hyo, it's probably the main guy who does most of the organization. I mean, him and So probably do most of the work there. But I know Rin does a lot of social media. Yu Taro's the MC. Hyo's the MC. I know they all put in a lot of work individually. Nobu's there DJing all day. But this is the third time, this event came up, and the cash prize was absolutely incredible. I mean, it was insane. It was more than Catch and Flow. You've got 100,000 yen. That's $1,000 for first place, plus like 20 kendamas. 20. That's money in itself right there. You can sell all those for even more money. Second place, 30,000 yen. Third place, 20,000 yen. That's roughly $300, $200, right? The first couple times, Pop Swag, the first couple events, they did, yeah, it's more of just to have fun and kind of spread awareness that this event is a thing. Like, let's get together and have fun with Kendama. There's a competition, but let's just all play. This time it was a real championship, and the goal by the end, I've seen this. I've seen this event grow and grow and grow. In just the short past 6 months they've been doing it, right? 6-7 months. They've already held it 3 times this year, and at the end of the event, Hyo was saying, I want to have this event be the biggest event by next December. 1 year from now, I want, in December 2024, I want Pop Swag to be the biggest event in Japan. I forget if he said world, I think, or Japan. I know for a fact he wants to be the biggest in Japan, and he's going to work super hard with all the people I just mentioned, the other hosts, to get this Kendama event on another level. A level that's probably never been seen in Kendama. He wants this, he said it himself. This is a sport. We are going to raise the game. And that energy from not your typical Kendama hosts, but your players who are now putting on events for the younger generation, for the younger kids, for the younger people out there, for even the people they looked up to, These players are still players, but they're transitioning to more of a different mindset going forward, right? I mean, they're literally helping Kendama get to a new level and putting on for the sport in general. To me, this was really moving because I've been a player myself for the past 12 years, and I've hosted one event myself back last year before I moved to Japan, Bellevue Kendama Battle, and these guys are really doing it on the next level. They're working so hard. I know they all have lives. They all go to school. They all have jobs, right? They're going through that regular season of life, but they're still making time to throw to throw an event for everyone from Japan and from overseas to come too, And why wouldn't you come, right? The cash prize is only going to get bigger. The prizes are only going to get better. As long as sponsors keep cooperating, it's just going to get better and better and better. So this is something that I've really noticed take shine, is just players in Japan moving towards hosting events themselves. I know so many kids who host not only just events. There's obviously a lot of events hosted by players now in Japan, but people are just doing jams and throwing them up on Instagram. Like, hey, I have a couple of people from Dream Kendama, Ryoga, Saki. They have things called Roga's Gym, Roga's Kendama Gym, Saki's Kendama Gym. They're hosting their own jams and making it public to the world. Hey, just come jam, come learn from me, right? I've gotten to this great level. Come jam with me, come, catch this vibe, catch this energy, right? When you jam with someone incredible at Kendama, you have no choice but to get better. And they're along your side to teach you. I know Shinosuke does jams all over Japan, mostly in Tokyo, but when he goes to different places, he tries to host jams. Of course, some money goes towards him, but he's just doing it for the sport and wanting to help and teach others. And everybody's doing this. They're not waiting to be somebody. They're not waiting to have a sponsor. They're not waiting for the perfect time. They're just doing it. They're putting on. And this is happening literally all over Japan. There's something happening every single weekend. And it's pretty known by a lot of people all across the country. It's absolutely incredible. I know there's jams in Europe. I know there's jams in America. I know things are happening here, but it just seems on another level in Japan. There's meetups so often. And so many people take an initiative by themselves to really go after it and host something by themselves or with their friends, or they're just hosting so many meetups and they're official. And I think that's exactly what we need. They're almost like practice sessions, right? Like, hey, it's Saturday practice, let's go. It's incredible just having that atmosphere. I really feel like that's a huge aspect of why Kendama is a sport mindset in Japan. They just take it a little more seriously than the rest of the world. My next point I want to address when talking about Kendama as a sport in Japan is the family mindset, the parent mindset. This is crazy. When I was growing up, when I was 12 years old, started to play Kendama. My parents always supported me. My parents have always supported me now. And, I've been really, really lucky to have such supportive parents coming up. And, they supported Zach and I, bought us Kendamas when we weren't sponsored, drove us to nearby events, right? Local ones in Seattle, in Washington, different pop-up jams when they could. But these parents in Japan are literally practically Kendama players themselves, almost every single one of them, and they enter the competitions. They are there getting to know the players, moms and dads, getting to know literally everything about Kendama, getting to know the brands, getting to know the Kendamas their children are using, getting to know the international players, right? Like, parents are so involved in the game over here in Japan. Quick examples. Who's filming Madi, right? Who's filming him? He always uploads incredibly high quality tricks on Instagram. If you go surf his Instagram, 90% are filmed with a nice camera. Guess who that is? Yeah, that's his dad. That's his dad most of the time. Filming him, hand filming with a camera, to my knowledge. Guess who films Notica? I mean, her mom. Her mom hand films her with a camera. Her mom is tracking her movement with a camera. How crazy is that? How insane is that? Can you imagine your mom filming a Kendama trick for not just minutes, but hours potentially? Can you imagine your mom or dad doing that? I definitely couldn't with mine. Not that I expect them to, but it's just different over here. I mean, then you've got not just the filming, but let's just take Naru, for example. Naru is a 7-year-old Kendama player. He has been playing for almost 2 years. Next month, he will hit his 2-year mark in January 2024. He did 62-point prelims, full marks at KDBC this year. He's 7 years old, right? His mom, he lives so far away from most people. His mom films him for hours. Hours. And every time I think it's a tripod, sometimes it is, granted, but I can see a slight movement. I know his mom films him for hours because I've talked to her a decent amount. And she's like, yeah, I just end up filming him for a couple hours, and I edit all his videos and I post them all on the Instagram. I literally run his Instagram. That's another thing too. Parents run their entire kids' Instagrams for Kendama. They'll run their kids' accounts on Instagram if they're too young, right? Maybe until they get to about 12, 13, 14 years old, they can have their own accounts. But what I usually see is I read their bios. It's just a bunch of videos, edited videos, would that matter, with text, songs, cuts. Parents are doing all this for their kids. How crazy is that? And I can see in their bios, yeah, I mean, just ran by their dad, ran by the mom, but they're putting all these clips together, right? They're adding the text, adding the songs, adding the slow motion, all for their kid, sharing their kid online, sharing Kendama online. How incredible is that? Going to events, jams, any way to meet up with other Kendama players. Wow. Parents will go out of their way to literally go play Kendama for a day and come back. And it's not like they drop their kids off and come back. That's usually not the case. They go with them. They go to the jam. They have their own Kendamas to play with, right? They'll take their kids anywhere. I mean, it's like how my mom and dad used to drive me to soccer practice and soccer games when I was little. 3 times a week, 2 practices, 1 game on the weekend, double headers once every 8 weeks, It was just that kind of season. But there are so many more competitions in Japan than I'd rather say in most places. Right? I mean, parents will take every opportunity. Take their kids to a jam session with a popular group of players, a competition, right? I mean, I have a lot of examples to use, but let's just take Kazushi and Itsuno, for example. They live in the place I live, Nagai, Yamagata Prefecture in Nagai City. I live 5 minutes away from them, right? I've gotten to know them really well over this past year, and we've become really good friends. I've become really good friends with their family. And, I mean, in just 1 year, their lives have changed immensely. They're elementary schoolers. One's in 5th grade, one's in 3rd. And, of course, they come to the place I work every day, Spike, a place to come just hang out and play Kendama, pretty much. Also, Azoras are sold there. But, yeah, a place that just sells and Kendamas and just invites people to try it as well. They come there every single day. It's very close to their house. But their parents go all in on them, right? They have 3 kids, actually. One of the oldest one does ballet. But these 2, Kazushi does baseball, but Itano does only Kendama. And these 2 specifically, man, they live and breathe Kendama. Their parents also are the same way. The mom especially goes crazy. I mean, she will drive all the way to Tokyo and back, which, by the way, is like a 4 to 5 hour drive, depending on if you stop, depending if there's traffic, whatever, for an event and come back the same day. They've done that before. Usually, I mean, hey, they'll stay a night, right? They'll stay a night, drive back. That's 10 hours in the car total, round trip. 9 to 10 hours, right? Their parents took them to KDBC, that's cross country, Catch and Flow, Tokyo. All 3 pop swags, like I just mentioned. All 3 times. And they've gone to jams, regular jams in Tokyo and other places throughout this past year. That's a new level of commitment that I've never seen anywhere else. Anywhere else. Nowhere. There's no way I would go down just for a weekend. Hey, mom and dad, can we drive 4 or 5 hours away just to go this one thing this weekend? It's not really an event. It's just a jam, I just want to go. And the parents would also come to the jam, film their kids, take pictures of their kids, have, them do doubles tricks with the favorite pros, take pictures. I would never, ever have thought that would actually be a plausible reality for me to live in, right? In America, I've never seen anything like it. But it's happening. I mean, Itano and Kazushi went to Pop Swag just like I did last weekend, and the mom was just taking photos, videos, and just kind of being there to support them, right? Playing Kendama. She also plays herself, and the dad also dabbles, right? I mean, it's incredible. I'm almost like speechless sometimes thinking about it, just trying to talk about it, because I've never seen it. I've never seen it, that amount of support anywhere else, right? And these kids go to school just like everyone else. Kazushi plays baseball. Itano just does Kendama, like I said. But to them, it's a legitimate sport. You don't see that in America. I mean, their parents, right? Like your parents want you to do good in soccer and basketball, and hopefully they support you in whatever you do, right? They want you to do your best. They want to push you. Now imagine that with Kendama. These kids will come home, even if they don't come to the place I work after school, that means they're home filming. That means they're practicing for another comp that's coming up. I know that for a fact. I know they play Kendama every single day. I don't even have to check. I mean, every time I do check Instagram, it's a clip's on their story. A clip's on their actual feed, It's that they're that serious. And they don't even know they're that serious, but they are compared to the rest of the world. And that's why you see the skill gap becoming greater and greater between Japan and every other country in the whole world. Now, I know there's some rare exceptions out of the world. I know there's some people in Europe probably, or people in America, who have their mom and dad supporting them like this, or have this sport mentality mindset, having practices and like treating it as practice or games, or, like legitimately like that. There may be a few. I don't know of them. There might be a few. But a lot of kids are doing that here. A lot of kids have their parents as support and playing Kendama. And genuinely, when I just look at the skill gap between players in America and players in Japan, players in Europe, it's pretty hilarious how the Japanese players are so above everybody else. When you think about it, right? Like the last time someone won the Kendama World Championships was 2018 as a foreigner. I won that in 2018. Last American to ever win it. Last foreigner to ever win it, right? 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. All Japanese. 2024, I expect nothing else. I expect the same. Because the people who are trying the hardest, the people who are playing the most, and the people who are really taking it as a sport, treating it as a sport, who are the most serious about it in that mindset, are the Japanese players. And I don't think that's going to change for a little while. The last point I want to touch on is the JKA style of competition. And to a lot of people, this is just an old school style. Some people don't even probably know what it is. And don't worry, I used to think the same. It was just this extra thing, doing basic tricks, outdated. But JKA competitions have been around, to my knowledge, for around 30 plus years. They've been doing competitions, official, strict 1v1 competitions. Obviously, America introduced this freestyle sport, this freestyle side to the game, changing the way Japanese players play, changing the way they do competitions. A very, very nice influence from overseas, right? But I've never seen a Kendama competition like the way the JKA do it. They have judges, 3 judges, set kendamas you can use. Only one size, only one type of kendama, right? Different kendama clubs around Japan, dojos attending. They have huge trophies to give away, medals, jerseys. These competitions are held all across Japan. There's performance style, there's Moshikame competitions, there's standard 1v1 comp, there's speed ladders, competitions for different ages and different genders, and there are regional comps, and there are nationals. This is the most sport-esque I've ever seen kendama. I mean, everything about American and European other comps around the world, it's a lot more free. You can use whatever you want. You can wear whatever you want. There's usually not a judge really paying close attention to you as much as the other judges are in Japan. They're watching your every move. They're counting if you hold a stall for just the right amount of time. They're counting if your movements aren't like they're supposed to be, if they're not as strict. If they're loose, it's considered maybe an out. Maybe you lose a point there. It's that strict. It's down to the movement. It's so precise. And they also have a legit ranking system, like judo. This ranking system is called Dan. They have Q and Dan, and Q is the easiest. Q is from 10 to 1, 1 being the hardest. And then they go to Dan system, right? Dan, this is more known in the kendama world. The Dan system has 1 through 5 levels, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. And these are tests, real kendama tests. It's like taking an actual test in a class to pass. It's like in PE, like you have to perform well on this test, and your results will be measured, and you'll be ranked. So the Dan system, like I just said, is ranked 1 through 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. 6 is actually the highest, but there's a age limit on that. So you can only take it when you're 20 years old or above. So that's why you don't see a lot of people talking about it or even having it. But anyway, this is an official system, an official standard that kids use as a reference to master the basics of kendama and get extremely consistent at them. And you need an official judge to test you. And you can only test it once a month. If you fail, if I tested Dan right now, I tested 5th Dan and failed, I couldn't take it for the next month. Only once a month. And it really is a quality system to this day. You have to use a standard JKA Ozora, but I think that really just puts it into perspective of how precise you actually have to play the game in order to pass these tests, right? Because we're all so used to huge kendamas nowadays, sticky paint, cushion clear. As kendama has progressed, kendama has just gotten simply so much easier. It's gotten so much easier to play compared to how it used to be. And if you ever get a chance to play a JK Ozora, I recommend it. It'll probably humble you pretty fast. But anyway, you have to test these, and on every level there's 10 tricks you have to get through. You have to get them X amount of times out of 10. And so, yeah, it's only really popular in Japan because there's not really people overseas who can do these tests for you, but it's really, really an incredible opportunity to practice for a specific test of your skill and perform under pressure. It's huge. There's nothing like that anywhere else. There's nothing to that extent. You have Gloken Kendama Kente, but JK is on a different level of consistency. And it's honestly, the stakes are a lot higher. It's not just like you can practice them and do it at a jam or randomly at an event. It has to be just at a set place, at a time. It's usually all really quiet. It's a whole event in itself. In my personal opinion, if you're low on the Dan ranking system, it simply just means you don't have your basics down enough. There are definitely older style tricks on an older style of kendama, but if you can't do them, it kind of shows a lack of competence and just kind of room for you to improve on. So I encourage everyone to kind of look up what the Dan system is, if you can find it, and look at the tricks, test them on a standard Ozora just to have fun with it. It really tests consistency, and I think it's a really respectable thing to have to go through the Dan system and eventually get to 5th Dan. I mean, the kids I jam with all the time. Everybody who's good in Japan here, practically all of them have tested Dan and just gotten 5th. Obviously, it's really, if you think about it, like, oh, okay, like, of course, Ryoga has 5th Dan. Of course, Nodoka has 5th Dan. Of course, Madi has 5th Dan. Of course, just X amount of players. Of course, I actually never did the Dan system myself until I moved to Japan. And then me playing for 11 years already, obviously it wasn't that hard for me, but there's still players out there who struggle, who are fairly decent at Kendama, but struggle with the basics and struggle getting under pressure. But I think it's a huge learning opportunity to put yourself in a situation under pressure, right? You need to learn how to cope with that, and the only way you can do that is with experience, actually putting yourself in that environment. And obviously, if you work hard at it, I mean, you can definitely pass it. Itsuno is 8 years old. She already has 5th Dan. She's 8 years old. Kazushi is 5th Dan. Kohane, this other girl who lives here, Nagai is 5th Dan. Several people have 5th Dan in the prefecture I live in. A lot of players have 5th Dan all around the country, and they just put work in when they were young, and they just have it forever. It definitely is another standard to reach in Kendama, and the JKA is setting that standard for many young kids, because your Dan ranking can determine what class you actually can compete in certain competitions. So it's a pretty big deal. And just having a certification system like that to go along with competitions, I think is pretty amazing to this extent, right? So just to recap, Kendama is a sport mindset in Japan. We've got players that are truly trying to host events themselves multiple times per year, trying to get Kendama to become a sport as fast as possible. We've got parents, families supporting their children, going the extra mile, the extra 10 miles for them, filming for them for hours, running their Instagrams, editing their videos, driving them to events, jams, going on planes, flying across country to attend any event possible. We've got JKA competitions, strict judging, strict rules, set teams, clubs, dojos, trophies, medals. We've got different competition styles all within the JKA. We've got performance, Mochikame, standard 1v1, speed ladder, specific competitions and rankings for different ages, different genders. There are regional comps, national comps. This reminds me of a legitimate sport. These are all things you would see in a real sport, like soccer, like basketball. There are just different leagues, different standards. It's incredible. And finally, the Dan ranking system, just to, I guess, assess a person's basic competency of Kendama. It's pretty easy to tell. I'll never look at someone who has 5th Dan and think, oh, okay, like they can't play Kendama. It obviously shows a true grasp on Kendama if you have that, right? Same thing goes for Master 1 on Kente, of course. If you have those two, 5th Dan and Master 1 on Kente, it clearly means you know how to play Kendama, and you're definitely not an amateur, right? You're not a beginner. You know how to play. I really like the certification systems in that regard. And yeah, guys, these are just a couple of my thoughts on regarding Kendama as a sport mindset in Japan. I really think it's taken very seriously here, and some people might frown upon how serious it is. It's just for fun. It's just my pastime. It shouldn't be this serious. There are people out there who probably have this mindset when looking at how, wow, Japan is so into it, so crazy, like legitimately crazy. Like, why are their parents pushing them? Why is this happening? There are some people out there who probably think that, but in order for the sport to grow, it's got to become a sport. It's got to become competitive. And wow, it's been competitive for a long time in Japan, and it's only getting more and more serious. I mean, just take a look at the skill level. You can't argue with the fact that the skill in Japan is just levels above everywhere else. I mean, it just shows who's taking it the most seriously. It's pretty incredible to see in person, as I've seen so many different times this past year in Japan. The biggest rivals people are battling out now are middle schoolers and elementary schoolers. The best players are literally that young. I'm just super excited for the future because they have so many years left to give in their prime state as a Kendama player before you become an adult or before they have other responsibilities, right? They have all this time to give to Kendama, and it makes me genuinely excited to see what is going to become of the Kendama world in the next 10 years. I mean, these kids are so young now that in 10 years, they'll still be on top. Some of them will still be on top. You never really know. right? So look forward to it. And yeah, guys, this was Kendama as a sport mindset in Japan. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something new about the mindset of Japanese kendama players, about how they roll here, about what they want for the future, about how serious they are at improving and making kendama evolve as a sport, and hopefully gets you excited as much as it makes me excited for the future of kendama. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening, and peace out.